Pulling Kair to his feet, Ghislain asked what he planned to do next. Kair assumed the fight was over, but Ghislain calmly corrected him, pointing out that he himself had not yet stepped outside the circle. Kair, taken aback, watched as Ghislain clenched his fist. Ghislain announced that it was time to discipline his subordinate, signaling that the ordeal was far from over. Ghislain delivered a solid punch to Kair's face, knocking him to the ground. Kair quickly raised a hand, asking Ghislain to wait. He reminded him that the fight was over the moment a combatant stepped out of the circle. In response, Ghislain struck him again and questioned if Kair intended to abide by rules on the battlefield. Kair, furious, called him a bastard and reminded him that nobles weren't supposed to act this way. Ghislain, his expression serious, ordered him not to speak back to his master. When Kair insulted him again, calling him a lunatic, Ghislain hit him once more. The punches continued, one after another, until Ghislain's hand was smeared with Kair's blood. The mercenaries, watching from the sidelines, grew uneasy. They had expected Ghislain to let their captain go after winning the duel, but instead, the beating continued. Kair, his face swollen and bloodied, begged Ghislain to stop. Ghislain pulled him to his feet, and with a cold gaze, reminded him that he had not yet stepped out of the circle. Kair, horrified, turned to his men and shouted for them to intervene and kill Ghislain. The mercenaries grabbed their swords, but before they could approach, Ghislain unsheathed his axe. His commanding tone froze them in place as he warned that anyone interfering with his master's discipline would be killed. The mercenaries, seeing the deadly intent in Ghislain's eyes, dared not move. Kair, trembling like a beaten dog, turned back to the young noble. Ghislain asked if he was finished, and Kair's only reply was laughter born of fear. He knew he had miscalculated. Another punch landed, pushing Kair back. For the first time, Kair's overconfidence had failed him. He had always seen nobles as pompous losers, arrogant, selfish, and easily manipulated with the right scare tactics. It was this attitude that had earned him the nickname Mad Dog, a title he relished. Yet now, the so-called Mad Dog was being thoroughly beaten by a noble he had underestimated. The mercenaries, visibly worried by their captain's condition, glanced at one another, unsure of what to do. Kair's face was swollen, his body bruised, and his strength depleted. Ghislain paused to assess Kair's injuries, and then turned to the mercenaries. Breaking the silence, he ordered them to fetch water, bandages, and a towel. The men were taken aback by the command, but Ghislain calmly warned that their captain would die if they didn't act quickly. Shocked into action, they complied with his orders. Ghislain observed the scene closely. He noticed how the previously unruly mercenaries were now following Ghislain's commands without question. In a world where strength often carried more weight than laws, Ghislain had established his authority in the most direct and irrefutable way. He had demonstrated who was in charge. In the next scene, Kair sat slumped in a chair, his body wrapped in bandages. Ghislain placed a sheet of paper on the table in front of him and instructed him to sign it. Kair, staring at Ghislain with a mixture of defeat and resignation, realized that he had no choice but to comply. Kair hesitantly took out a pen and signed the document. As he handed it to Ghislain, he nervously asked him to take it. Ghislain, fixing him with a cold stare, demanded he repeat what he had just said. Kair, now visibly shaken, stammered that he looked forward to working with him. Ghislain grabbed Kair's hand, causing him to flinch. With a calm but firm tone, Ghislain told him they were now family and that he too looked forward to their collaboration. A few days later, at the outskirts of Perdium territory, a group of mercenaries had gathered in the early morning. One of them, yawning, asked if anyone knew why they had been summoned so early. A bald man carrying a shield chimed in, mentioning a rumor that their employer was the young lord of Perdium. The mercenaries were shocked to hear this. One of them scoffed, calling Ghislain just a brat and doubting his ability to manage mercenaries effectively. He speculated that the job would be easy. A shirtless, heavily built man clapped his hands to grab the attention of the group. Known as Gordon the Muscle, he smiled and addressed his fellow mercenaries, suggesting that they needed a representative to handle their brat employer. His imposing presence caught everyone's attention, and they nodded in agreement. Gordon commended their admirable posture in devising ways to gain rewards without effort, but he warned them that their plan would fail without unified voices. The mercenaries agreed with Gordon, recalling past incidents where poor coordination had led to failure. The bald man asked Gordon about his plan, and he explained that knowing one's boundaries was crucial. Opening a bag of coins, he announced that he would act as their representative to pressure their employer, requesting contributions from the group for his hard work. The mercenaries, impressed by Gordon's confidence and size, believed him to be the perfect choice for the task. Praising his reliability and wit, they added coins to the bag. Their plotting was interrupted when one of them noticed someone approaching. Looking up, they saw Ghislain riding toward them alone on his horse. The sight surprised them, and one remarked that Ghislain might flee once he saw Gordon's intimidating build. Gordon instructed the group to approach him together, creating an imposing presence. Smiling confidently, he declared it was time to teach the young lord a lesson about the real world. However, before Gordon could confront Ghislain, he noticed a group trailing behind him. As they drew closer, the mercenaries identified the group as the Cerberus mercenaries, recognizable by their distinct dog snout-shaped helmets. Shocked, Gordon questioned how Ghislain had managed to recruit the infamous Mad Dogs. When Ghislain finally reached the group, the mercenaries instinctively stepped back. Turning to Gordon, Ghislain asked if he was the representative. Gordon, now visibly nervous, admitted that he was. Ghislain inquired about his name, and Gordon introduced himself as Gordon the Muscle. Ghislain smiled, commenting on the uniqueness of the name before tapping Gordon's chest and complimenting it as pretty cool. Introducing himself as the young Lord of Perdium, Ghislain commanded Gordon to gather the mercenaries. Once assembled, Ghislain addressed them with a serious demeanor. He announced that the time had come to begin the pioneering of the Forest of Beasts.
So, friends, this chapter comes to an end. What will happen next? We'll uncover it in the next chapter. Don't forget to rate this chapter out of 10 in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.